Hello and welcome. You're watching the Tuesday edition of This is Exclusive with me, Shavan Sen. It's no longer a shadow conflict. It's an all-out war between Israel and Iran. But how long can this continue? Will Iran be able to perhaps carry on with the endurance battle? Tonight on This is Exclusive, we get you both sides. What's really happening in Israel as well as Iran. The only Indian news network to give you a 360-degree view as to what's really happening in West Asia. But up first, let me take you through the headlines we're tracking at this hour. No sign of a ceasefire soon. Israeli Defense Minister Katz announces that the IDF will strike very significant targets in Tehran later today. Republic is the only channel live from Ground Zero in Tel Aviv, rolling coverage and exclusive reports from both the countries.
और एयर इंडिया कोई जवाब नहीं देते। अब हम लोग अभी अगली बार से एयर इंडिया में आने वाले नहीं हैं।
Massive crisis hits Air India. Multiple flights reports technical snags and cancellation. Passengers left stranded. Prime Minister Modi in Canada to attend G7 summit to meet President Zelensky on the sidelines of the summit. Ladies and gentlemen, in the last 24 hours, the Iran-Israel conflict has escalated sharply, with both nations exchanging direct military strikes in what is being described as the most intense confrontation between the two powers in recent years. Iran has launched a barrage of missiles and drones targeting major Israeli cities, including Tel Aviv, as well as the port city of Haifa, causing civilian casualties and extensive damage to military intelligence infrastructure. Now, in a swift and forceful retaliation, Israel conducted targeted airstrikes on Iranian military sites, including a hit on Iran's state broadcaster. What you see on your screens right now, these are the images coming in of the Israeli Defense Forces, which has once again gone on to send its most stern warning now. International responses have been swift and divided. Now, what you see on your screens are how resources in Iran have also been targeted. The United Nations has called for an immediate ceasefire, and the US has also urged for a de-escalation. Former President have also now stepped in. In fact, as far as United States of America is concerned, important to point out here what is happening on the ground. Iran has already retaliated. On your screens, these are latest images of multiple military sites being targeted in Israel. Iran says that if at all United States of America is into diplomacy, then it is time for them to pick up the call with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and call in for a ceasefire. Is there a ceasefire anytime soon? It's unlikely, given the fact that what you see on your screens right now, it's an all-out war that's actually going on. Viewers, Republic TV is providing first-hand coverage of the aftermath of the Iran-Israel conflict. The report that we're going to play out in a short while from now is from Tel Aviv, which captures the immediate impact on residents and cities' infrastructure following Iranian missile strikes, offering a poignant look at the resilience of the people of Israel amidst the chaos. Now, not just in Israel, but also in Iran, there has been large-scale devastation that's taken place. If you go by the numbers that have been put out by the Iranian, it goes into hundreds. As far as Israel is concerned, perhaps it's a little different, but tonight we'll break it down for you. First, take a look at what's happening in Israel.
This is the hole that made just one ballistic missile that was fired from Iran towards a residential area in the center of Israel. Meters from here there are kindergarten, schools, a lot of buildings with innocent people living there, and you can see the impact. One blast of a ballistic missile destroys anything with the shock wave in a radius of around 500 meters, and Iran continued to bombard Israel with hundreds of those kind of missiles for 5 days. Israel tries to destroy the nuclear capability of Iran because they also can use the nuclear weapons and to strike the same areas, but the impact will be much more bigger. Here behind me you can see the residential area in the center of Israel, and one of the ballistic missiles of Iran targeted this area where there is a schools, kindergartens, many residential buildings, and see what a huge hole just one rocket did. You can see the impact just of one rocket. See how big is that? And there are 10 buses here which were completely destroyed by this rocket, and in those buses each morning children are taken to the school, and you can see it is completely destroyed. You can see the destruction, and if the children was here now, they probably all would be dead. And this is what Iran is doing. They are targeting those kind of places where residential places are, where there's so many infrastructure, public places, regular people are living here, and you can see the destruction, how many of the buses were destroyed completely. And now some Jewish Orthodox Jews came here to cheer up the people of Israel. They probably want to say to them that God with us, with Israel, this is the promised land, and Israel will prevail. And you can see what a huge damage to all those buses, 10 buses, each of them with about 70 or even more places. And those buses at this hour when the rockets strike, usually taking children to the kindergartens and to the schools. But because Israel declared a military situation, emergency situation, the kindergarten, schools and workplaces are not open, and that's why there were no one here, no children. And this is a miracle that no one was killed from this ballistic attack by Iran. But you can understand what a huge disaster that could be. Nicole Yochin, center of Israel. This bus was one of the targets of the Iranian ballistic missiles. In this bus supposed to be about 70 children, and also there are another 9 buses that are completely destroyed from one Iranian ballistic missile. It happened in the morning when usually those buses take children to kindergartens and to schools all around the city. But just because Israel was now in an emergency situation, the kindergartens, the schools and also the workplaces are closed. That's why nobody was here, and just because of that, it is not a big tragedy that could happen here. Nicole Yochin, the center of Israel. И все, последний раз я выхожу. See a residential area, there are schools, kindergartens, and this is a huge hole here behind me that made just one ballistic missile. And you can see here around how many buses are impacted by just one missile. You can see it is completely destroyed, and just by fortune there was nobody here inside of those buses. But if somebody was inside, no one will survive it for sure. You can see how huge the blast was, and more than 10 buses are completely destroyed. You can go and see here all around the complete destruction. In one bus there could be more than 70 people, and you see it is completely burned. And you can see here there are more of those buses. There are so much of them. This one here completely burned, but also the other ones. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 buses that were destroyed. If there were people inside of them, so the casualties could be massive. And those are the targets of Iranians. They are targeting civilians. You can see those are buses that civilians use them. This is not a military target. It is just civilian buses. And you can see here the impact. For hundreds of meters, you see the impact of those rockets. You can see here everything completely destroyed. And Iran continue to target civilians all across Israel. Nikol Yochin, Central Israel.
Well, that was what happened in Israel. Now let me take you through what's really happening on the ground in Iran. In fact, Ali Akbar Darini, he's a writer, joining us from Tehran, only Indian network to get you both sides, Israel as well as Iran. Mr. Darini, thank you very much for joining us from Tehran. I believe you'll have to unmute yourself. I want to begin by asking you about what's the situation like in Iran right now. Given the fact that President Trump has already announced asking people in Tehran to leave the city, an indication that there could be a massive escalation by the end of the day.
Iranians have suffered as a result of the Israeli act of aggression. Israel started an unprovoked war against Iran right in the middle of negotiations between Iran and the United States. And this war has been directly assisted by the United States. Israel, under no circumstances, was able to carry out such an act of aggression without logistical, intelligence, military, and diplomatic support from the United States. Iran did not start a war. It is Israel that started the war. The pictures you showed highlighted that Iran is targeting civilian areas in Israel. Iran is retaliating to Israel, targeting civilian areas and residential buildings in Tehran and other Iranian cities. Look at what Israel has done from the first moment it attacked Iran. They claim that it has everything to do with Iran's nuclear program. That's sheer lies. It has nothing to do with Iran's nuclear program. Israel possesses nuclear weapons. Iran doesn't. Israel is targeting civilian areas. Can you build nuclear weapons with hospitals? Yesterday,
can I then ask you, Mr. Darini,
it targeted Iran's broadcaster organization. Can you build a nuclear weapon with a media organization? Can you build a nuclear weapon with civilian areas?
They
No.
say, I'm not getting into the specifics of that, because the Israelis are claiming that it is used by the Iranian military, but that's not the point that I want to focus on. But what I want to ask you is that what's the end game? Because there were reports that were coming in that Iran essentially wants some sort of a mediation to take place. You've been urging United States of America to make that call to Prime Minister Netanyahu, hoping for a ceasefire. Is that what Iran is looking forward to? Is there a possibility of some sort of a ceasefire in the coming few days?
Iran did not start a war. It didn't want a war.
Is it willing to come? Is it willing?
Expand.
Is Iran willing for a ceasefire agreement?
Who are pushing the United States to enter the war. So Iran has not asked for a ceasefire, although it doesn't want the war to expand. Israel has killed civilians in Iran, started an unprovoked war. If Iran does not impose a heavy cost on Israel, Israel is not going to stop. So Iran's priority is to punish Israel and inflict unbearable pain on Israel so that Israel stops its acts of aggression. At the same time, if that stops, Iran will be open to diplomacy. Iran was in the process of diplomacy. Iran was about to enter a sixth round of negotiations with the United States. It was Israel that derailed the talks, and it was the United States and the Trump administration that allowed Israel to derail the talks and allow Israel to carry out such an act of aggression. And now it is killing diplomacy. I hope the Trump administration is wise enough not to fall in the trap by war-hungry Netanyahu. This is a key issue, but Iran is prepared for all eventualities.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Darini, for getting us the view from Tehran, the only Indian news network to put across both sides what's happening in Israel as well as in Iran. In fact, earlier today, I spoke to an Israeli parliamentarian to get you a sense of what's really happening in Israel. In fact, the parliamentarian, when she spoke to me, was at an attack site. This is what she had to tell me. Israeli Member of Parliament Nina Shhata is joining us on this broadcast. Ms. Shhata, let me first begin by asking you, what's the situation like on the ground? I'm given to understand that you visited certain sites that were attacked by the Iranians. What's the current situation like? Because the Iranians are claiming that several of your defense facilities have now been targeted. Is that true?
Thank you, Mr. Sharon Shan, to you, and hello to the audience. I can say that I am now in the site that attacked aggressively by Iran, but Iran regime. Unfortunately, last night it was the 5th day that we are dealing with a very aggressive regime that send missiles through the innocent people and innocent civilians. This is what they are done. In this site, you can see that there is a lot of damage, if you can see. And unfortunately, 4 innocent people died in this site. Some of them elderly, and we are dealing with a big threat from Iran. And I want to tell that the job that Israel done now with Iran and the war that we open against this unfortunately evil regime that tried to threaten by terror, by nuclear bombs, it is not a job and it is not a mission only for Israel. It is to bring a peace for the Middle East, but not the Middle East, also to all the countries that believe in peace and believe in democracy and believe that people need a safetiness.
Ms. Shhata, has Israel been able to achieve its goal? You have to now depend on the United States of America, because if at all you want to cripple Iran's nuclear program, you cannot do so because you do not have the resources at this point in time. You would want US intervention.
As you know, since the war outbreak, we have a lot of achievement from our army. The Air Force Army of Israel is a strong army, and we do our best to damage the plane of Iran to get a nuclear bomb. And we know that it is threat of the safety of the world, not only the safety of Israel. Because of that, we will continue until we achieve our mission. One of them, it is to stop and remove the threat of a nuclear bomb. The second one, as you see the damage of the missiles that Iran sent, you understand that their goal is to hurt and to destroy Israel, and it won't happen. And because of that, we will continue until we achieve our mission.
Now, let me tell you what's the cost of this war. The escalating conflict between Israel and Iran has exacted a significant economic toll on both the nations and the global economy. Israel's military expenditures have surged, with costs associated with missile defense systems, airstrikes escalating into billions. Bank of Israel estimates that the war could cost the country up to $67 billion by 2025, including military outlays and civilian expenses. Now, the financial strain has led to an increased budget deficit and rise in government borrowing costs. Iran, already grappling with economic challenges, faces further strain due to international sanctions and the depreciation of its currency. Now, as the situation continues to develop, the economic ramifications are becoming increasingly evident, affecting markets and economies worldwide. Columnist Terry Newman explains.
As we enter day 5 of this Iran-Israel war, the costs from the Israeli side of executing this war are in the region of about 800 million to $1 billion per day. Now, that number splits approximately 50% on offensive costs, i.e. the costs of Israel sending its aeroplanes nearly 2,000 kilometers from Israel all the way across to Iran, and the munitions required in order to take out the various nuclear installations, the ballistic missile installations, and also the targeted assassinations of the military leadership of the Iranian regime and the Revolutionary Guards. That obviously, in addition to the local costs of various operatives that have been reported or not been reported to be working on the ground there. In parallel, you also have the costs of defending the home front. So as your viewers are probably aware, Israel operates a multi-layered, multi-tiered air defense system, which includes the most famous Iron Dome, but then you also have the Arrow 1 and the Arrow 2, which go outside of the atmosphere and into space. We have David Sling. We have the American THAAD system. And there's also the laser system, and so that's also, at peak nights when there've been hundreds of surface-to-surface missiles and also ballistic missiles. There've been evenings where it's been $1.5 billion of expenses because of the cost of the interceptions. Just to sort of put in, numbers. The cost of a Iron Dome missile is in the region of about $50,000 a missile. The cost of an Arrow 1 is in the region of about $3 to $4 million a missile, and the cost of an Arrow 3 is around $5 to $6 million in order to take those down. So that obviously explains why the laser, which is costs $1 or so, is such an important addition to the defensive arsenal of countries that want to protect themselves from incoming rockets and missiles. Obviously, those costs are the direct costs of both offense and defense. In addition to that, you have the costs of repairing the buildings that have fallen and lost GDP. So that's an overall picture. I hope that's useful.
Well, in fact, what's the impact on India? In fact, government sources already indicating that the crude oil stocks are enough and it does not have any direct impact. In fact, I'm just going to quickly take you through the details that we've just got from our sources in terms of how exactly is the government responding to this entire thing. Point number one, we have been given to understand global crude supply. There is currently an oversupply of crude oil globally with no risk of shortage. OPEC plus production, the group is producing 120 million barrels per day. Through production has been slightly reduced by 5 million barrels, bringing the current levels to approximately 97 million. And rising supplies from the Western Hemisphere, countries like Guyana, Brazil and US have emerged as major oil suppliers. So there is no direct impact. In fact, Strait of Hormuz's dependency of India's 5.6 million barrels per day oil consumption, only 1.5 to 2 million barrels comes through the Strait of Hormuz. So there is no disruption in it. Well, that's all that we could pack in this edition of This Is Exclusive. Coming up, trending with my colleague Rakshita.